Before we begin today's episode, a brief content warning. Our episodes today are going to be the first two episodes of Season 6, which are The Beginning and Drive. Both of these episodes are a little gorier than typical X-Files episodes, but in particular I would like to just warn you that the second episode, Drive, does contain the death of a dog. Listener discretion is advised.
Welcome to Things Again Strange, an X-Files Rewatch podcast. I'm Nick.
And I'm Kim.
And we've arrived at Season 6, but I believe we have got some news, some weird, flippant news.
What's your news this time?
Well, we watched Is It Cake 2 last night, and while this wouldn't normally pass muster, Joel McHale was one of the judges on it, and we can connect him to the X-Files, or we'll be able to later on.
Like Season 10.
Season 10, maybe 11, we can't remember. Definitely Season 10.
Well, if you're going by tangential, and I did mention it on the Twitter, I did watch a horror movie night called The Dangerous Game, The Legacy Murders, which one of the main characters in it was Will Sasso, who's one of the brothers in, I might be pronouncing it wrong, Je Suis Hat, the Genie episode.
Yes, one of the ones right at the end of Season 7.
It's Season 7, is it?
Yeah.
Oh, we'll get to that one a bit closer at least.
That one's imminent.
I thought it was a fairly fun movie. It's been critically hammered, but it was entertaining enough.
It was absolutely inexplicable towards the end.
Yeah.
What? Who? What? What is going on? But yes, it was at least entertaining.
Mm.
But do you have any news?
I do have a kind of good segue into this season, just because I asked on Twitter a few days back what people thought of Season 6 on the whole. I've got some variable comments on there. Some people said that the series actually always wound up being better than they thought it would be. Whereas I had some praise as well for particularly standalone Monster of the Week episodes, which interestingly includes Drive, which is one of the ones we're going to be talking about today. But there are several Monster of the Week episodes that are... It's kind of interesting. They're divisive, let's say. Some people regard them really highly. Some people really don't like Monster of the Week, which is a comment which was the one I especially thought interesting from the X-Files virtual episodes on Twitter. That's at XF_lost episodes is their Twitter handle, I think. But they commented that it was kind of a come down from the peak of the show, largely because there is too much farcical comedy, which is a lot of these controversial Monster of the Week episodes, but primarily because of the loss of the Vancouver atmosphere and crew, which is actually something that fans of the show slammed the X-Files for at the time the season came out. Because it was felt that the Vancouver episodes had this kind of dreary feel to them, this very distinct tone that you can't replicate in the middle of a desert, essentially. At the time this was released, a lot of the fans kind of did say the fact that they felt that the X-Files had now been Hollywoodified, and something to look out for. One of the criticisms was that this had caused the scriptwriters to oversimplify the episodes and kind of make them less complex, just so they'd appeal to a wider audience. As well as there was a criticism that also... Originally, the X-Files tried not to get any big-name actors in there, but at this point we're starting to get more guest stars who are better known, particularly in America.
Very true. I can certainly say the atmosphere is very clear. I mean, I think they actually do admit for the beginning they open on a desert scene purely to show that, hey, we've got a desert we can now put in episodes.
Yeah,
in films.
It's kind of interesting when you look at opinions at the time, because Chris Carter was vehemently against moving from Vancouver. It was largely at the behest of David Duchovny and to a lesser extent Kim Manners and Gillian Anderson why they decided to move. David Duchovny thought it would give him a kind of better springboard to also have a movie career, rather than being stuck in Vancouver, as well as being closer to his wife, who was Taya Leone, I think, at the time.
The hilarious thing is, though, that Evolution has to be like one of the next film projects he's got coming up, and oh boy, Dave.
I've never seen it.
Oh, we'll have to watch it. We could do it as a thing at some point, but I've always thought of it, and I don't know where I got hold of the idea of, other than Dan Aykroyd will show up at the 11th hour of the film, it's kind of Ghostbusters but with aliens.
Oh, okay.
It's a very strange film.
Sounds like it should be fun.
It does. That's the problem. It's not. There's a reason why you've never seen it, and a reason why it doesn't come up very much anymore.
Mm.
But yeah, I can certainly see the atmosphere thing. It's 2 for 2 episodes of driving through deserts in the first 2 episodes of your season.
It probably gives you an opportunity for a little more kind of climate variety being in California, though. We've commented previously about trying to pass off Vancouver as being places like Costa Rica just doesn't work.
That's true. I mean, it feels like, though, it's too late because you've already pulled this stunt and it didn't work then, and now you're going to have to try the other way because your moody woodlands are going to look really weird when we get back to them. We're not going to have the same kind of woodlands anymore.
I must admit, I agree with the people who spoke about the Monster of the Week episodes. I know there are some good ones in here. There are some that I remember really fondly, and I really hope they hold up.
So I suppose we should start with the beginning, which is a weird thing to start your 6th season called, but, the last one was called The End, and oh well. Directed by Kim Manners, written by Chris Carter, first broadcast on the 8th of November 1998. Guest stars, we have a mainstay of the series coming in here, which will be James Pickens Jr. as Alvin Kirsch, who will last right into... Does he make it to season 11? I think he does.
Yeah, I think he does. He's not in that many episodes, though.
No, and he was actually surprised he gets to season 11 for reasons we will talk about later. We've seen him before, though, in Sphere.
Okay.
And Red Dragon. And Seinfeld.
Oh.
We also have Wayne Alexander, who played G. Arnold, who was in Babylon 5, and it's been a while, but Frasier. And he'll turn up twice more in the X-Files, in Monday and Via Negativa.
Okay.
But the one we like, because she's cool, is Wendy Malick, who played Assistant Director Maslin. She was in Scrooged, the Bill Murray Christmas Carol thing. She's in The Emperor's New Groove, Kronk's New Groove, and The Emperor's New School.
I'm going to guess she's Patch's wife.
She is indeed. First pregnant Disney character.
Oh, yeah.
She's also showed up in Baywatch. She was in Seinfeld. She was in Frasier. We know her for a few other things, like Father of the Pride, where she keeps seducing that rogue KGB agent.
Oh, that's her, is it?
That's her.
Oh.
Blake the White Tiger's wife is Wendy Malick.
Blake the White Tiger was the guy who was
Peterman.
in Postmodern Prometheus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's your weirdo connections coming back in. She's in Pushing Daisies. She's in BoJack Horseman. But of course, she's Ida in The Owl House.
The Owl Lady.
The Owl Lady. We do like her. And last but weirdly not least, we have Benito Martinez, who was the orderly. He was in Saw, where he played Brett. I can't remember who that is.
Are we talking Brett from the first Saw?
Yes.
That's Dr. Gordon's lawyer.
Ah, okay. Well, that's him.
Not to be confused by Brett from Saw 5, I think, who's completely different.
Okay. He's also been in Star Trek Next Generation. He was in Firefly. And the weirdest one on the list, he is in Killer 7, the video game by Suda51, better known for No More Heroes.
Oh, I remember Killer 7,
Yeah.
So, do you have a synopsis for the beginning?
From Wikipedia, then. In Arizona, a scientist working for Roche Technologies is inadvertently exposed to the black oil alien virus. An alien gestates inside him and bursts from his body the next morning. Hours after his death, a co-worker who arrives at his house is attacked and killed by the newborn alien. In Washington, Mulder appears before an FBI panel regarding his experiences in Antarctica. While this is occurring, the Smoky Man reports the syndicate on the alien in Phoenix, confident he'll be able to kill it. Skinner tells Mulder, who is working on restoring the burned X-Files, that he and Scully have been denied reassignment on the X-Files, and that Mulder should seek out a folder left on the desk in his old office. Mulder picks up the folder to discover Spender and Diana Fowley have been assigned to the X-Files. Feeling betrayed by Fowley, Mulder leaves, but not before stealthily taking the folder with him. Smoky Man seeks out Gibson Praise, who is undergoing brain surgery. Mulder and Scully head to where the alien gestated, finding the alien's nail in the wall. The Smoky Man arrives soon after with Gibson, who tells them the alien is no longer there. At a nearby nuclear power plant, the alien kills another person, but Mulder and Scully are denied access by Spender and Fowley. Upon return to the car, they find Gibson inside, who has escaped from Smoking Man. Later that night, Fowley tells Mulder that she was offered the X-Files and is protecting his interests. Mulder leaves Gibson with Scully and heads off with her. The two of them believe the alien is seeking heat, which is why it is at the power plant. Inside, they find organic matter on the ground and cooling pipes. Scully brings Gibson to the hospital, where it is determined he has the alien virus in his blood. The black-haired man kidnaps him soon after and brings him to the power plant. They find the alien who attacks the black-haired man, but not Gibson. Mulder witnesses from outside a locked door. Mulder is then arrested by the security guards at the power plant and abandoned by Fowley. Afterward, Mulder and Scully are ordered not to associate with the X-Files anymore, and are reassigned under Assistant Director Alvin Kirsch. Spender is visited by Smoky Man, who congratulates him on his work so far. Mulder persists on continuing to work on restoring the X-Files, and is told by Scully that Fowley's report does not reflect what really happened. She then reveals the alien virus DNA is part of old human DNA, but in Gibson the DNA is active. Back at the power plant, Gibson Praise is trapped inside a room with the alien, which sheds its skin to reveal a traditional grey alien form.
Thank you.
This is a weird episode. And it's good to be able to talk about this one, because we can now talk about the end, the film, and the beginning all in one go, and how that's possibly the most disastrous bridge of conspiracy to date, because none of that joins together properly.
Yeah, it's so clumsy trying to reconcile the movie now, while at the same time trying to follow on from things in the end that were not referenced in the movie at all.
Yeah, because they wrote them completely in the wrong order, with no regards for how this is going to connect together.
Mm.
And I'm going to go up front as well, and I get why the heat thing with the aliens is being done. Because they're using that as an excuse for putting everything in Arizona, and then doing things in the nuclear power plant. On the other hand, it doesn't make any sense. Because I don't get how this virus works anymore. Given, it says, Scully's found the virus. Cool. That makes an alien just stay inside you and burst out of you like a chest burster, and you've got a tiny alien with sharp claws running around. Except it doesn't. Scully in this episode. It is just a virus, I think. What?
One of the criticisms I read at the time is that Scully's personality is just flip-flopping between these movies, as she should be an ardent believer at this stage, and she's been shunted right back to being a skeptic again.
Okay, so we don't know. Well, actually, that's another thing. We don't know how they got the Antarctic, because we're just going to gloss over that little detail.
Magic.
But we'd like to think that Mulder has to get her upright again on that ice, and he can sort of turn around and say, "Now, Scully, there was something here like 20 minutes ago."
When you've got this kind of gaping, saucer-shaped pit in the ice.
Something gigantic has gone. It would not look like that if it had been filled recently. You saw the fact you were kind of out of it, but you were inside a structure, a very strange structure that what it was doing we can't tell. As you said, she should be fully on belief. There should be no doubt in her mind. I do get she's trying to be empirical still, but I don't understand what Chris Carter's doing with the virus now. Because this thing about it being in everyone's DNA is... Then why is Scully shocked in the film?
I'm not sure why this should be so much of a stretch either, given that you always have those kind of trivias banded around like we have 50% of DNA the same as a housefly.
Yeah.
Is why the idea of junk DNA should come as such as a shock to someone like Scully with a background in biology.
Exactly. And I do feel that we've forgotten about the Erlenmeyer flask. Given we've actually said, this 7th and 8th DNA bases are found in the purity control sample, why is this not kicking back in again?
Generously, I'm gonna say that Redux possibly threw a spanner in the works when you've got Mulder with the ice core sample that's been tampered with, and the idea that if we've tampered with this and kind of created this false chimera cell once, maybe we could do it again.
Yeah. I think that's a charitable way of looking at it.
But you want something more solid so you don't fall into the same trap Mulder fell in Redux.
Yeah. I do feel, though, with a bit of foreshadowing for how later seasons work, is basically Chris Carter is discarding ideas he doesn't like at a certain point, but not tidying up after him. They're just being left by the wayside after a certain point.
I can see it. I don't like to talk about how I would rewrite a series, but at the same time, I can see in a long-running series ideas evolving. You think of things you didn't think of at the start, like we've seen with the black oil.
Yeah.
You need a way to either artfully more tie it in or to tie off the old threads before you bring in new ones.
Exactly, and he's not doing that second step. It's being we're just going to ditch what we set up last time and take the core bits we like and keep on going forward.
Yeah.
And that strikes me as that's not great. There is a really weird inconsistency within this film in this episode, and it's one that I don't think I've ever sort of rationalised before, but hey, the person running this panel, who is Ida the Owl Lady, why is she not the same woman as from the film? Because you'd think that'd be the same person.
Interestingly, and it's something that Chris Carter has done before, her character name is taken from a critic who didn't like the X-Files movie.
Oh, for God's sake. Chris, that's petty.
I think we saw that back in Never Again when they had the woman who was killed who was named after another vocal
Yeah.
X-Files hater.
Oh, that's so petty.
Yeah.
That's so... that's terrible.
Yeah, it's Maslin or something.
It's
like that.
Maslin.
Yeah, I think it's Janice Maslin was somebody who heavily criticised the X-Files movie.
What are you doing, Chris? My still question is still, why did you not get the actress back in to just reprise the role? Because she's clearly meant to be the same person. I know she's not called the same thing, but she's clearly supposed to be.
But we got the Owl Lady.
We did get the Owl Lady. Unfortunately, this is her only appearance. And the thing I also think, and it comes back into that whole thing about the films, is since the film ended with the X-Files have been reopened, and now we've got this weird thing where we don't know what that time frame is between Antarctica, that telegram, and Mulder and Scully being back in Washington when Scully handed over the beat. And we don't know between that point and the meeting in this one. We assume it can't be that long, but Cancerman is doing some very fast international travel. Like, the man isn't sleeping at the moment. Because he's had to zip back and forth between Tatooine and the States again.
Possible.
But it's not... I'm not saying it's impossible, it's just he's doing an awful lot of stuff. And then we've got Mulder painstakingly trying to restore the X-Files, which is a detail I'd completely forgotten about. The fact he's trying to put the old case files back together.
Yeah.
Which is a nice touch. I do feel it's going to take you a long time, Mulder.
He does admit that, but he reckons that he can salvage a lot of them as well, which is nice. It's
a good touch. I mean, I'm amazed you actually can do that with fire damage records like that, but presumably only to a certain point.
But you've also got his eidetic memory, which presumably helps.
Yeah, that would help. We've got an awful lot of stuff has to have been implied to have happened. And again, people like Strughold have just, dropped off everything. Where's Strughold? Who cares? Bees? Should we mention the bees?
We don't talk about the bees.
We don't talk about the bees anymore. We all talk about Gibson Praise. When they wrote the film, they hadn't written the end. So they had no idea about the beginning. My God, this is confusing.
Actually, when they wrote the film, they did have an idea for the beginning. I don't know where the end fell in the genesis, but Chris Carter commented that 2 years prior, when he'd written out the draft of the film, he did plan the end as well. As, the bit where it would connect back in.
It doesn't feel like he did it too well, though, because it's one of those whole subvert expectations I get. Because you're sort of saying the X-Files have been reopened, it's not Mulder and Scully in charge of it. But that feels like a decision that you would have come up with in the interim with the whole, we need to mix up the series. Because normally you'd say, okay, Mulder and Scully going back into it again, that was the whole premise of the film.
Yeah.
And the fact we haven't done that.
I guess it's the idea that it would feel a bit too neat if they were taking off the X-Files to be essentially immediately put back on it again.
Why not? We've already done it once.
If you hadn't seen the film, which is perfectly acceptable, you can just take the film largely out of the running here. If you hadn't seen that, it would seem really underwhelming if your big twist at the end of season 5 was the X-Files is closed, then half an hour into season 6 it's been reopened again.
I think it's a problem of that doing the X-Files shutdown is a bad idea to do more than once.
It's in part, and it's partly intentional as well, as I detest the characters they've put on the X-Files. It's only for a fan perspective. They do a perfectly good job with their characters, it should be said.
Oh, yeah.
It's no disrespect to the actors or anything like that. But as a fan of the series, when I was watching this the first time, I especially hate Diane Fowley. But also Spender too, is you got really frustrated because you didn't want these pretenders to the throne on the X-Files.
No, and the weird thing is we're going to have this conversation at least 2 more times in really different contexts.
Yeah, I am sorry. It's largely always going to be me saying I detest Diane Fowley.
Yeah.
As a fan of the series, I just detest Diane Fowley. I absolutely hate the character.
I've got more loathing for Spender, I must admit. I think, although it's one way you could argue Diana is a lot more knowingly manipulative, because it's clear she knows a lot more than she's letting on. There's something else she knows.
It's also so clear that she's the bad guy, but Mulder will not see it because we're keeping up this frustrating sexual tension.
Yes, although I think it's that you didn't like her in the beginning, and you can't ding her in the same way for the beginning. Now you know she actually is doing something.
You know, at the very least, for some reason, Mulder sees her through rose-tinted glasses, but Scully kind of nicely summarises every bad thing that Diane Fowley has done, which negatively affects Mulder in this episode, and Mulder just will not hear it.
Yeah, I think it's the report. It's how she spanned the report is not what he experienced. That should
Where
be
it protects everyone except Mulder, who she entirely throws under the bus.
Yeah.
But for some reason, he will not see this.
I do feel. I mean, I don't know if it's a real criticism or not, but I think one problem with her as well is she hasn't actually been set up properly.
No.
I mean, again, we mentioned last time that if you made her Phoebe, that would be something. But you still need at least, I don't know, 2 episodes, maybe half a season to ground her properly before her betrayal impacts us.
I think Phoebe would work better. You don't have with Phoebe the background of her being involved with the X-Files, but you do have her history with Mulder.
Yeah.
So if you'd brought her back in, say, start of season 5, you could have woven Phoebe back through that series, her involvement, and made it make sense for her to take the mantle.
Yeah.
You know, bring Phoebe back as somehow she's become an FBI agent now. She's left Scotland Yard, become an FBI agent somehow. We've woven her in there, and now she's at the helm of the X-Files.
Yeah.
I'd have more of a feel because she's got more kind of involvement with the series. Just bringing Diane in now, having never mentioned her in the past, despite the fact she's essentially the X-Files' co-founder.
Yeah, and I think it's that retcon in which falls flat, and the fact that, as you point out, that Travellers couldn't even bring Diana Fowley in.
No.
The fact that the end was so unplanned.
I feel, and I'm pretty sure it doesn't go that way, it's like that series of Buffy the Vampire where they introduced her sister, where for a while you were just sat there wondering if you missed the plot and where on earth this other character came from. But in the end, and sorry, spoilers for a 20-year-old series, that's entirely the point, is their memories have been altered. So you're not supposed to remember Dawn.
Yeah.
She's been kind of inserted in from that point. And that's how I feel about Diane Fowley. It's like you feel we should have heard about this character in some capacity, even if it's just name-dropping her previously.
Yes, I think that would have been a good way.
Still, it's how you kind of mask a retcon better.
Yes.
I mean, I don't know if there's such a thing as a retcon with a purpose, but it's something that seems to be a retcon, but actually isn't really. But in this case, this is a pure retcon.
Yes. Well, the various writing people will argue about this all day, and I think a lot of people have said that basically no writer in the world is ever going to avoid retcons entirely because, as you said before, you have more different ideas over time, new ideas improve. This kind of thing is inevitable. The problem, it's usually execution. Because one of the examples I know of is Pirates of the Caribbean.
Mm.
So, Pirates of the Caribbean, the first film, the compass points to, well, it doesn't say exactly how the compass works, but the compass points to the island where the treasure is.
Yes.
There's a scene cut from Pirates of the Caribbean which makes it explicitly clear that's all it does.
Yeah.
Second film, it's to your heart's desire. But because that scene's missing from the first film, and as you don't specify that's a mechanic, you can then retcon in that it's something, it works like differently to how you thought it did.
Yeah.
So that's a retcon, but that's not one that's disruptive. It doesn't invalidate what you knew before. The original film plot makes sense.
Yeah.
Most people take retcons as bad, and a lot of the time they are, but it's because, as you kind of alluded to before, they're artless, they're clunky. The after effects of them haven't been taken into account because when you do it, if you're a good writer, you've got to take into account how that new knowledge reframes the older stuff. And if you're not careful, the older stuff, people are either psychotic or murderous or flippant or uncaring or callous. It does terrible things to characters and events if you're not careful. Star Wars, I think, has a good god so many retcons at this point. It's like that whole thing of Leia's mother.
Yeah.
The implication in Return of the Jedi is she spent some time with her mother before she was adopted.
Yeah.
And Revenge of the Sith said, nope. Mother died of broken heart before she could see anything. And it's the Force is the only reason we know any of this.
Yeah.
And you're going, George, what are you doing? You'd hope when they did this that, and to be fair, you've got to say that the beginning is slightly awkward because it wasn't meant to happen. This was meant to be filmed too. Presumably we're going to push how the X-Files reopened in the intervening years into like a nebulous other place before we got to I Want to Believe, and now we've actually got to deal with it. But then we bring in Spender back, and
we can't ignore Gibson praise because of the way we left off at the end.
But I think the other problem is we don't know what to do with Gibson praise because now we're using him as an alien detector. And wasn't he a psychic chess player like literally 2 months ago?
We also kind of inferred without saying it that he was an alien-human hybrid last time, and now it seems to have come to a shock that we've realised he's an alien-human hybrid.
Yeah. And I also want to sort of just highlight the syndicate, because it's the whole, we had the big gathering in London to meet with Struckold, and now we're just meeting again back in the New York apartment. Because could you not have flown everyone to New York? Is there a reason why you had to go to London for this?
Yeah.
I think it's the problem of, and I think we are coming back to, a lot of the problem is season 6 wasn't meant to happen. And trying to push it back into the series framing makes the film look weird.
Yeah.
Because you did some very odd choices. One thing I am surprised about, though, is that the Mulder's office set is already restored. Because I thought they were actually going to... They burnt it down to give themselves some leeway before they had to bother with it again, but it's already back.
Apparently the idea of burning it down, from what I read a couple of weeks ago when we were looking at the end of the last season, was to help the set dressers so it doesn't have to be exact when they brought it back.
And it looks fine.
Yeah.
I mean, I do want to ask what Spender and Fowley are doing in the dark in that bit at the back, which we don't go into very often.
When Skinner also set him up for a fail, kind of like, oh yeah, go in there and get that file. And Spender is just lurking around the corner as he does so.
I also think that bit was weird, because you get the whole Skinner can't help them directly, so he's going to do this indirect thing by saying there's a folder on the desk. And then it turns out that, yeah, Skinner just told you to steal a file, Mulder. Because immediately Spender and Fowley know it's gone.
Yeah.
What's going on?
I will say, to give it positive, I really like the way the beginning opens.
It's a good.
I think the opening kill is really effective,
and it also feels like, and it doesn't go anywhere, that Roche, we're referencing Roche again. We haven't heard about Roche since Redux 2.
I think.
Redux 2. Wow, we're getting somewhere. We know they're messing around with the alien virus for something, and someone has inadvertently infected themselves
And become a Jelnana.
We got to talk about the infection rate on this, because that's so much faster than Scully. I know she was frozen for part of it, but that infection is faster.
It could be the heat. They kept Scully on ice, and they were doing everything in the cold last time. We saw them even chilling that kind of cabin under Texas.
Yeah, I do have a sneaky suspicion that the whole thought process was, Tunguska's pretty cold. We had all the stuff in Antarctica in the film. We froze the cave in the film as well. What if we made things hotter? I'm dubious about...
It does work for viruses and stuff, as heat does affect.
It does. But isn't Hong Kong kind of hot?
I don't think it's necessarily that hot, to be honest.
Well, maybe not that hot, but it's kind of meant to be humid climate, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it'd be... Well, it's hard to say hotter than we would experience in the UK, because everywhere is.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's like as hot as the Arizonan desert would be, for example.
Yeah. Yeah, we've seen the black oil. It used to irradiate people, and now it just turns you into a... Jelnana. That it's going to burst out of you.
I really like that effect, though, when he sits down and he kind of holds up his hand and it's transparent. I'm going to say again, I'm not sure how, if something's absorbing the nutrients out of you, this would work, because otherwise tapeworms would make you really flipping transparent.
Yeah, I think it's meant to leach from the place near it, and it draws things in then, but...
And not the extremities.
Yeah, that does make a lot of sense. I mean, at least the effects of the alien, from what you can see of it, it still looks good as a practical effect.
Yeah.
That the actual malevolent alien. And I don't know if I want to give them kudos or not for fixing the life cycle, because you got to ask, what the hell is going on with the aliens?
Oh, yes, it makes sense. I thought in the movie that maybe we were going on them kind of being a genetic throwback, like a Neanderthal. But no, they actually are the vicious newborns, and then they turn into the Greys. They, shed their skin like the alien in Alien. But, yeah.
But again, I'm just trying to think of like a daycare centre on the alien homeworld of, it's biting me. Oh, like he shed his skin. Oh, thank God. This one's biting me instead. Oh, get off.
You're imagining it like being swarmed by Tasmanian devils or something.
Hotel Transylvania.
Oh, the little werewolves.
The werewolves.
Yeah, much like that.
Like that on the alien homeworld. This is how they live their lives. That kind of works. At the same time, I'm going to go with, really?
I'm going to say as well, for realism, as that is blatantly not a nuclear power plant. In fact, I looked it up. It was clear it was something industrial. It's an electrical substation. And it did cause them a lot of trouble in filming that location, because that particular substation is only used if they need, on rare occasions, a surplus of electricity.
And did you do it then?
It was filmed during a heat wave, so not only was it 100 degrees out there, but also the fact that means the substation had to be turned on So they were filming with 100 decibels of background
Ooh.
machinery noise. So a lot of the dialogue had to be re-recorded over the top. So you've got what the situation must have been like for the actors filming this when you've got that sound level and that heat. Welcome to California. Season 6 has begun.
We're going to Vancouver after that. No. It's a nuclear power plant. They've got a guy called Homer working there who's working safety.
That was cute.
Cute, but one of the more artless jokes you could make, I think.
Mm.
I think if you said Linear or Carl or something, or Smithers.
But it literally looked nothing like a nuclear power station. You couldn't even be fooled.
There's structures which I think you meant to imagine like the control rods, except that's not a nuclear reactor down there, so that's not how that's going to work either.
Mm. That water tank apparently was where they filmed a lot of the watery scenes for Baywatch.
Another connection.
I know you like a Baywatch connection.
Look, I only like the Baywatch connection because of Baywatched. Alison Pregler's bizarre recap of the series where you're going, what on earth was going on with that series? I do feel, and I understand why they don't do it, but it feels too blunt, or it's one of those, the after effects of things aren't kicking in. Is well-manicured man's death it's happened, we're just going to ignore it.
We just don't mention it
We don't
anymore.
mention it, yeah. I'd like even like a throwaway line of dialogue from them about, sort of, we've lost one of our co-conspirators. We need to sort of make up for it because what he was doing, we now need to sort of control.
We don't have the experience of our English friend anymore.
Exactly, just that kind of thing. I'm also going to go back to, where is Krycek? You didn't have to put him in the end. If he wasn't in the end, you wouldn't have been asking this all the time, but he just isn't around.
We've got black-haired men, I think, for our assassin in this episode.
Oh, but now he's dead.
Yeah.
What a great
yeah.
One thing I will say about this episode, and it was actually kind of a revelation when we watched it together the first time, because I didn't know it existed. For whatever reason, when season 6 went out on BBC, I missed this episode. So
okay.
I thought season 6 opened with Drive, and thought that, we've just discarded everything from the film. Mulder and Scully on the X-Files. Yeah, fair enough. I just kind of rolled with it, but no, it's case there's a whole episode to explain what's going on.
I think it works okay opening with Drive, to be honest.
I think it's a better opener. The episode, I think we've gone over it a few times, but the episode has the scars of, it has to serve as the next episode after the end, and it has to serve as a sequel to the film. And because of how different both of them are, it's trying to serve both, and it can't do both, so it's a mess.
It is a real problem, trying to both deal with what we've set up in the film, but also keep on going with the kind of Gibson praise plotline.
Yeah, and also the fact that we apparently had no idea what we were doing with Gibson praise when we left things off. I kind of wonder, I know that the official stance is I Want to Believe was film 2. I have to sort of say, was Gibson praise meant to become more relevant in one of the films? Was there something intended? Was there an inkling of an idea for Gibson praise that we never got?
It's kind of interesting that one of the spin-off comic books, I think it is the season 10 one, in fact, is all about Gibson praise.
Yeah, you told me about this, and it's
so I think it's more of we had more plans for this character, and this was our kind of way of getting it across.
Yeah.
Because bearing in mind that originally season 10 was canonical, it's just canonicity was revoked when they actually made a season 10 of the X-Files.
It just goes to show you, anyone who argues canon ever, nothing is ever canon, because the rights holders can say that's out at a moment's notice. It doesn't matter what okays you got the first time round. It's all suspect. Do we have anything else for this episode? Because it's an awkward one.
I just don't think it's a good... It's not just not a good opening, it's not a good episode. And it should be noted that it had polarizing reviews at the time it came out.
I can see that.
Some people did like it, some people just absolutely slammed it, including Cinefastique and those two guys who wrote the Guide to X-Files, Millennium and Lone Gunman, which I really should write down the name from because I forget this every single week. But, they were like 1-star reviews slamming this as an opening to the series, which isn't really good as our first taste of us filming in a new location to have such a weak episode to begin with.
No, that has just occurred to me as well. The other problem with this, then, and I've made a point of this a few times, the fact that the X-Files to date has had 3 pilots, effectively, which was the pilot, Deep Throat, and Little Green Men.
Yeah.
or basically function as pilots. The beginning should actually be another pilot because you are anticipating you brought someone in with the film. You
It's the
anticipate
start of a new era.
yeah, but you're anticipating the film would have got you a new audience. And this is the weakest of our nebulous 4 pilots at this point, because this one doesn't actually make any sense if you've not seen the end of season 5. If you don't know who Gibson Praise is, you're lost. And if you are expecting the film things to carry on from, like, you might expect Strughold to be instrumental in things going forward. Nope. Roche hasn't been mentioned since the start of season 5. Diana Fowley has sprung out of nowhere, so is Spender. And Cancer Mantis' father. I mean, the film audience must be going, what the hell is this?
We've still got the kind of alien virus plot going, but we've kind of shed the bees and the crops and all that sort of thing.
Yeah, I really do not remember if the bees will ever come back, which is frankly a bizarre move given how much we've given to those sodding bees. We'll keep an eye out for this. I have a horrible suspicion that's it. They're gone, aren't they? We will be surprised, because I think we've forgotten a few other bits and pieces over the years.
It's also a strange decision to kind of add this more savage stage to the alien life cycle, as the aliens up to this point have always been kind of smart and meticulous. But now we've essentially got... It's almost a Monster of the Week plot where we're chasing this savage alien around a nuclear power plant.
With one exception. Fallen Angel. And also the original form of the black oil.
We still don't know that's the same alien.
True, but my point is, though, that we have had monstrous aliens in the past, but only a few instances. Yeah, as you say, most of the time, they are distant, cold, and inhuman.
But even the one in Fallen Angel possesses a person and kind of can control him. It's not savage. It's an intelligent creature.
True. Well, as far as we know.
This is a xenomorph.
Yes.
It's just a completely savage thing that attacks people.
And you can understand why that was an idea for the film. I'm still amazed that Frank Spotnitz or anyone else didn't say to him, look, are you sure about this? This is not how we've depicted them up to this point. Do you want to talk to Ridley Scott? Because you can give this script to him. I say Ridley Scott as if he's the godfather of the Alien franchise. Look what he did to with Prometheus and Alien Covenant, so I don't think the man should be allowed near the series anymore.
Yeah, it's interesting you should bring up Ridley Scott and Alien, because that really does echo Cinefanti's review. As usual, I think it's Paula Vitaris who wrote the reviews for X-Files and Cinefantastique. But she kind of said it's kind of like introducing monster aliens now is like something out of a pulp novel. It's not the kind of high-minded shadow conspiracy story we've had before.
Yeah. We have criticised the fact that we had too many different alien species and we had no idea how they coexisted. And we have rationalised a few of them into the same species, which helps a bit. But the feral stage is great as a one-off movie threat. Like, if this was a new species of alien, that's fine. Making them the Greys, while that does sort of bring them back into the loop, raises a lot of questions. Like, what is your society like if you have the demon children for, what is that, like 4 days? They're just going to be maniacal death machines?
Yep.
And then calm right down? And I suppose the other lingering thing from this episode, and to be fair, it's an X-Files regular thing, is where's that alien going? Is it just going to live in the nuclear power plant for the rest of its days?
There are also questions... Well, live in the nuclear power plant with Gibson Praise for the rest of its days.
I know that a lot of them end with that kind of cliffhanger thing. There's usually a bit more of a closure to the cliffhanger ending, and this is just... Is no one going to find it when they do maintenance on the reactor? It's like, holy what is that thing?
You've just ruined it for me now,
Sorry.
trying to think of the alien life cycle and just their world, and we don't know enough about them. Where are they getting all these hosts from if they are a gestating species like that?
Well, the film, I think the film kind of took some pages out of Lovecraft and is also not entirely sure where it's going with it, but they were saying the black oil is the original inhabitants of the Earth. But what we have to take from how the film did it is the savage alien was the original inhabitant of Earth, and they changed into the grey aliens, and then mankind wiped them out somehow, or did they die because it was cold and the Ice Age happened?
But even in our planet, do we have this like the alien movies, and we have these kind of chambers with hosts stuck to the walls that these are gestating out of all the time? It's what other worlds have they conquered? Where are they getting these other species? By that definition, what are these other alien species they're conquering before Earth and things like that? I have many questions and I don't think they're going to be answered.
Yeah, I mean, I think I can see what the thinking was someone somewhere when they've been doing this has said, what do they need the syndicate for? And this is someone's best idea. I really want to see what the rejected idea list is. What else was the syndicate for that was rejected before we got to provide alien hosts?
Yeah.
At the same time, you go, are you sure they're going to be able to do this? Also, do this with bee stings. I think that's another weird inconsistency we can now talk about. Is the idea is that infecting someone with the black oil will just stay inside them until they'll be reborn. So they're reborn from the black oil under the earth. We're going to have to ignore the petrochemical stuff because that doesn't make any sense anyway. Mm. But usually in these kind of things, when you're resurrecting someone, like this was in God of War Ragnarok.
Okay.
So God of War Ragnarok, I've been playing. I've only got to the point where basically Atreus is given a bag full of marbles. Most of them contain the soul of a giant.
Okay.
And he can then he basically as a last giant, he can put souls into the marbles. He can take souls out of the marbles and put them into a living thing. So he reanimates that snake.
Okay.
That whole point is that's a specific giant soul that we're messing with. The black oil is like the live stream in Final Fantasy VII. It's just an amalgamation of an alien race. So you're resurrecting an alien race. You're not resurrecting Steve. You're recognizing Steve meshed with Adam, Dave, and Shirley.
It's essentially primordial ooze.
Yeah. So, but resurrecting a race is really odd when you're not bringing back people. You're just bringing back a race and you don't care about the individuals. Which, with a telepathic race, maybe you don't. But it does strike you as the whole continuing, we haven't planned any of this out. We're just going to keep on nailing planks to this bridge.
It's one of those things like Alien is you need a concept of a queen. There needs to be a hive mind there, in which case the individual would not matter because the collective unconscious would be existent.
Exactly.
But we don't have any kind of sensation of that happening.
True. Although I will defend the original Alien, given the idea was you didn't have a queen, the aliens could generate eggs, but it was an auto-generation cycle.
Do not take the queen out of this. She is awesome.
She is, but she wasn't the original concept.
She is awesome.
She is awesome. But there was a capacity to make them just a mindless virus bioweapon, like a massive virus that was just going to spread irrespective. Everyone loves the queen, I know.
Thank you, yeah. She's a Disney princess.
Well, yes. Shall we move anything else this episode, or should we move on to Drive?
I'm done. I think I've said all I need to say about this episode. Let's never talk of it again.
That's fun. That's cool. Okay, let's go on to something better.
Yeah.
Drive. Directed by Rob Bowman, written by Vince Gilligan. Hooray! First broadcast on the 15th November 1998. Guest stars. Oh, we have a doozy. And not for the reasons you think either. This took a while.
Okay.
Guest stars Bryan Cranston, of course, as Patrick Crump. This man has done too much.
He's had a great career.
Yeah, but how he started, I don't think you know this bit.
Okay.
Okay, so it comes up occasionally that certain people in the X-Files have done dub work.
Okay.
So has Bryan Cranston.
Okay, who did he dub?
So I've only seen a few of these, but he was in Royal Space Force Wings of the Honomays.
Oh, yeah.
Street Fighter 2 as Fei Long.
Oh, cool.
He was in Macross Plus.
Oh, neat.
Armitage 3. And then none of these are credited under his name. These are all credited under pseudonyms, presumably not to damage his Hollywood career. But then we get into the things you know. Saving Private Ryan. Mm-hmm. Little Miss Sunshine.
Oh, yep.
Confusingly, Drive.
Oh, he was actually in Drive too.
He was in Drive as well.
Yeah.
John Carter. Total Recall, the remake.
Ugh.
Argo. The 2014 Godzilla.
Mm-hmm.
Kung Fu Panda 3. And he'll be in Kung Fu Panda 4 as well.
Oh, nice.
Madagascar. Sorry, Madagascar 3 even.
Oh, okay.
Because he's the leopard. The one who jumps through the hoops.
He's a tiger.
Tiger who jumps through the hoops.
Yeah.
That guy.
Ah, cool.
The Disaster Artist. As himself. Power Rangers.
Oh.
Baywatch. Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. He's a TV series and he's in the film.
That's neat.
Seinfeld, obviously, as Tim Wadley. Babylon 5. Sabrina the Teenage Witch. Third Rock from the Sun. Clerks.
Ah.
Malcolm in the Middle, the one everyone knows him from. Lilo and Stitch. And I haven't even got to the ones that people actually know him for, which is what
Malcolm in the Middle is Hal. Everyone knows that one.
Fair enough, but the connection to Vince Gilligan comes in with Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul.
He's Walter White.
Where he's Walter White. Plays the same role in both series. So, there's another guest star after that, but it's fairly much mentioned, which would be Michael O'Neill as a patrol captain, though he was in Dreamcatcher.
Oh, poor man.
Transformers.
Oh.
But more relevantly for us, he's in Millennium.
Okay.
So, what happens in Drive?
Okay. Our episode opens in a live news report of a high-speed car chase across the Nevada desert. The police assume it to be a kidnapping because they can see a female passenger in the back seat. They manage to pull spike chains across the road to stop the car and pull the two people out of it, pinning down the driver, Patrick Crump, and pushing his wife into one of their vehicles. We see through this news report that his wife is beating her head against the window of the car, very clearly in discomfort, when all of a sudden her head explodes, sending a spray of blood across the windows. Mulder and Scully, who are still off the X-Files, are now working in the Domestic Terrorism Department of the FBI. They are investigating a possible case of this in Buell, Idaho. Mulder is absolutely bored senseless and believes that their job is pointless grunt work designed to punish them, and to be fair, he's probably correct. While investigating this case, he does see the news report about the Nevada high-speed chase on the TV and decides that he needs to investigate this, recognizing it instantly as a potential X-file. Scully is reluctant, but he convinces her that they can get there and back quickly without being noticed. They take a detour to the police station in Nevada where Crump is being held. Crump has also begun to develop symptoms of an illness, the same one that had affected his wife previously, and is being loaded into an ambulance shortly after they arrive there. Mulder wants to speak to Crump directly and follows the ambulance while Scully remains to autopsy the wife and figure out what was wrong with her. In the back of the ambulance, we see as the vehicle's speed picks up, Crump starts to immediately feel better and his vital signs return to normal. This enables him to overpower the police and steal their gun, jumping out the ambulance to take Mulder and his car hostage. In the meantime, Scully helps autopsy Crump's wife and discovers evidence that she may have been suffering from some kind of virus or infection that attacked her inner ear, causing a huge buildup of pressure, which is what eventually caused the side of her head to explode. She is now deeply concerned that both she, the other doctor, and potentially anyone else who's been near Crump might also be infected. She unfortunately discovers on speaking to Mulder that he is now being forced to drive for Crump, who is in the back seat pointing a gun at him. Through observing and speaking with Crump in the car, Mulder realises that he's suffering from a really, really painful sensation of pressure building in his head. The only things that alleviate this seems to be to drive west at a high speed. As the hazmat team investigate Crump further, they decide that it isn't actually some kind of infection. Scully leads a search on the Crump's home and finds a dog suffering the same symptoms, as well as dead birds on a neighbouring property. However, they learn that the neighbour herself, who is profoundly deaf, is unaffected. She then notices a plaque on the ground that shows that a US Navy antenna array emitting ELF waves is stretching beneath the Crump's policy. Although when she visits the Navy base, they are unable to tell her much about this, what they do infer causes Scully to deduce that there has been some kind of recent abnormal surge in these waves, and this has had a knock-on effect on any living being nearby, causing a rising pressure in their ears. And of course, as we've seen in Mrs. Crump, leading to their eventual death. Crump's relationship with Mulder is initially antagonistic. Crump has settled on the fact that there is some kind of government conspiracy, and he does believe that the government has done this to him, and therefore he is unwilling to trust Mulder as an FBI agent. He riles Mulder up along the way, infuriating him in particular with anti-Semitic slurs. However, Mulder does do his best to kind of keep Crump alive, and eventually the two of them kind of strike up this kind of odd little friendship, as Mulder becomes determined to figure out a way to save Crump before it's too late. On communicating via phone with Scully, they eventually hit on an idea that Scully will meet them at the end of the highway. When she's there, she's going to insert a large gauge needle into Crump's ear. This is his one shot at relieving the pressure, although it will likely leave him completely deaf. Crump agrees with this, expressing the fact that he'd rather live. Unfortunately, by the time that Mulder arrives at the police barricade on the breach, Crump has already died due to the condition. Mulder and Scully return to Washington, D.C. to be reprimanded by their new assistant director, Kirsch, for straying from their original assignment, and the huge debts in transit and recompense that Mulder has built up during his kidnapping. Kirsch warns them that they are forbidden to investigate any further X-Files cases.
Thank you. I was saying, we kind of left Kirsch out of the beginning because he's barely in the episode. Basically, you get the whole, we're working for Assistant Director Kirsch when he's sort of leaned forward and looming at them.
I like Kirsch as a kind of new little roadblock for them as well. Because, Skinner's become too on side. It's nice to have that kind of antagonistic boss back.
Yeah, and I think it's also hits him up at the end of the episode is he only cares about protocol, which again is, we had that whole criticism in the film, and you could have, if they'd changed how the film was done, you could have actually got it that the panel only cares about protocol.
Yeah.
But that didn't come across in the film.
And it's nice to have the butting heads with Mulder at the start being forced to investigate the domestic terrorism case, which he believes is entirely pointless. However, that's what the FBI are supposed to investigate.
Yes.
So you've got this kind of extreme breach of protocol from Mulder.
Yeah. And it's also kind of a good thing. I mean, admittedly, the one, especially when we see them doing, does seem to be pointless, given it's a farmer, he has the paper, he just needs to find it. It's a case of, you're here again.
Yeah. Essentially, he's growing sugar beets, I think, and has therefore bought large amounts of potentially dangerous fertilizer.
Yeah, for which you could use to construct explosives if you weren't so inclined, but he's doing it to make food production.
Yeah.
So yeah, I can kind of get more frustration. On the other hand, 6 seasons in, you'd think Mulder would be better at playing the internal politics or have a more of appreciation of how the internal politics of the FBI work, and constantly butting heads is not going to do any favours again.
I think you've got on the basis, the end kind of set up everything as moves and counter moves like a chess game. Mulder is profoundly bad at playing chess on this basis.
Yes. Well, I think I actually just escaped mentioning in the end, but do it quickly, is Mulder sort of saying, it's a chess game, it's all been set up, moves and counter moves. Because of what game of chess are you playing? Because Gibson Prey is being assassinated in a chess tournament. Because how did he get to that point? You didn't kill him before that. I mean, really? You apparently knew who he was.
Interdimensional chess.
That's a stupid move. You knew who Gibson Praise was, and you decided to kill him in the most public way you possibly can. And failed.
I think you're forgetting that we're watching a television show.
I know we are, but still. But I think I also, there's that point we made about the film of, there's that implicit threat to Scully. Something bad happens to Scully. It happened outside of the control of the Syndicate that the bad thing happened to her. But the Syndicate going, aha, yes, we control everything.
Would you like to actually talk about Drive?
Yeah, okay. Kirsch is an interesting character, at least. A very different assistant director to Skinner. It's interesting, he's got a similar office, but he's tucked more into the corner than Skinner is. Skinner's like in the middle, which I'm guessing is some subtle indication of how he lies. Like Skinner's trying to balance things out. Kirsch is shoved into the next to that wall. He doesn't believe them.
Oh, good symbolism.
If that's what they're going for. I mean, it looks like it's Skinner's office redressed.
Yeah.
But again,
which makes sense. They're in a kind of office building, and he's somebody of the same level as Skinner.
Exactly, and also we've also noted that basically that corridor outside Skinner's office is every corridor in the FBI, just slightly different. Which again is one of those, that's modern buildings for you. They do all look the same, exactly the same, no matter what floor you're on.
Yeah.
The end was kind of gory. I think this is actually possibly more gory than the end. So the beginning.
There are certainly a few bits in this. Mrs. Crump's death at the start is very nasty, as is the dog exploding halfway through it.
Yeah, I think you did know is, would even Fox News put head exploding on the news? I mean, I do feel...
Yeah, you cut as soon as you realised something bad was happening.
You could say disturbing footage, but you still put a sensor bar over or something, so you didn't quite get the blood
Even if
spread.
it was live, that feed would go down immediately the second you saw even the trace of blood.
Or is Chris Carter impugning Fox News by saying, nah, they're just showing the whole thing. It reminds me of that Simpsons gag. Fox News turned into hardcore pornography so subtly I never noticed.
Yeah.
I mean, central to this episode, though, is Bryan Cranston. He basically is the episode.
He's phenomenal.
He is very good.
They wanted in the casting of Bryan Cranston to kind of create a character who was clearly a villain and you shouldn't like him, but you still felt bad when he died, which I think they've done quite nice. He's kidnapped Mulder at gunpoint. He makes some kind of anti-Semitic slurs, assuming that Mulder is Jewish from his name, like people have in the past.
Yeah.
But still, at the end of the episode, he's a man who's lost his wife because the government have done something they've desperately tried to cover up to him and his wife. It's no fault of his at all, and you feel bad when he dies.
Yeah, although I would say I'm not sure if the government is actually trying to cover up at all, because I think the government doesn't seem to understand what they've done.
However, when Scully kind of infers, what could this do to a person, they immediately pull out that's classified.
Yeah, I think they know it happens, but I don't think they knew it happened there.
But then they also sweep the array away immediately after Crump's death.
I think that's a response to his dying rather than trying to cover up.
Well, it is a cover-up.
Okay, it is a cover-up. But, yeah.
But yeah, it's entirely their fault that 2 people, a dog, and a bunch of birds have all been killed by this.
Thinking about it, I'm not convinced the old woman should have got away with that.
If it affects the inner ear, her being deaf should not affect anything.
No, unless she actually has had that structure removed.
I also read as a potential kind of criticism of this episode the fact that it only seems to affect one ear.
Yeah.
If it was something that affected the pressure build-up, really both of their ears should explode.
I also do feel that, I mean, we are kind of just nitpicking. It's the direction I don't think was terribly clear why it's one direction rather than the other.
Yeah, they have to head west. That's correct, isn't it?
It is, and I don't think we ever get an explanation for why it has to be west. There are a few things you could pull from, but...
Interestingly, although it never actually occurred in Nevada, both the studies into ELF waves and Project Seafarer itself are real.
Okay.
They were a couple of experiments that were done on different lakes in America, though again, I cite not in Nevada at all. But it's a kind of amalgamation of 2 projects. One was a study into ELF waves as a form of communication, and the other was an earlier study, which I think was called something like Project Sanguine, which was investigating kind of doing this via underground cabling.
Okay.
But it hit a lot of criticism in America at the time because much like criticisms to things like onshore wind farms, people criticised the kind of radio waves it was making and saying there wasn't enough research into this and it could be harmful to people and wildlife in the area. And eventually, because technology had moved on and ELF communications weren't required anymore, they just dismantled the projects.
Okay.
So, but it was similar to this, and, kind of similar to the fears that people could get sick because of these kind of low-frequency wavelengths, which is what we've seen to the absolute extreme. It should also be noticed, because I think we brought it up before, is this is the Tilt-A-Whirl episode.
Oh, the unmade episode.
Yeah, Vince Gilligan's infamous Tilt-A-Whirl episode. Is he had one that he brought up that became a series joke, that he would always suggest he wanted an episode where somebody was kidnapped and held hostage on a tilt-a-whirl. And from that, he developed into the tilt-a-whirl idea is silly and it doesn't fit the themes of the episode. What happens if the man would die if the tilt-a-whirl stopped?
Yeah.
And that's how we've got to drive from that.
I can see that.
Apparently, this episode actually got him his role as Walter White. It's people in the casting department of Breaking Bad viewed Bryan Cranston as being a comedy actor because he largely was prior to this. So Vince Gilligan showed them Drive, and the rest is history.
Well, I was going to say, because after this, though, his big thing would be Malcolm in the Middle, and that would be what he's known for very well. Because you can ignore the oily dub stuff.
Yeah, I've got to admit, until Breaking Bad, I really thought of him as being the dad from Malcolm in the Middle. Yeah. I saw somebody online comment as well that it's, and I'm sorry, I can't remember who said this to credit them, this isn't me, but it's the idea that Walter White and kind of his character in Drive thematically are similar because both of them will die if they stop.
Yeah, I can see that. Mm. Of course, Mulder gets into the middle of this, because how can he not?
That's Mulder.
That's Mulder.
It's nice that Mulder got kidnapped for once, though.
It is, although he got to be... It's still one of those you don't think it's fair, because if this was Scully, you'd spend the majority of time with Mulder outside of the kidnapped space. But this time we're spending the majority of time with Mulder within the kidnapped area purely because he's Mulder.
If it was Scully as well, she'd have been tied up in the boot for the entire time.
Yeah, that kind of I do like Scully's biohazard thing, and I think Vince Gilligan does seem to get Scully very well, because it's like this episode where she is going to get in trouble for this. But that's not what she's thinking about when she does all the biohazard lockdown and everything and does the quarantine stuff and is trying to figure out what's going on. And I also really like the bit where Kirsch calls her
Yeah.
And it's like, how's Idaho? It's like, think of Agent Scully's case of, oh, he knows. I'm going to have to be honest, because if I lie at this point, that's going to be so much worse later on. But again, it comes back to Scully knows how to play the internal politics in a way that Mulder either doesn't or refuses to engage with. And it feels a weird one for an adult who's been working most of his life in the FBI. You should have some idea of how to operate in this environment.
Yeah.
Who you can't backtalk to your superiors kind of thing. Skinner's letting you off. I don't know why he's going to let you off some of the times, but at this point, he's going to just roll over. Kirsch isn't. Kirsch doesn't like you. In a way that Skinner never behaved.
Although Skinner was harder at the start, Skinner always liked him.
Yeah, I think the other interesting thing is from his first appearance, we knew Skinner knew more about the conspiracy angle of the X-Files than we know about Kirsch. We don't know what Kirsch knows.
Yeah.
Skinner knew more because of that conversation with the cigarette smoking man.
At this stage, you always kind of assume they do know something, but there is also the possibility that Kirsch could know nothing.
No, and Kirsch is just a stickler for the rules and does not like Mulder,
Yeah.
and it's going to make life hell for him. I think we alluded to it in the beginning as well, but this episode also feels like showing off that we're in California. We're going to have lots of sun-bleached roads that go on forever, through the desert, all the way to the California coast.
Mm.
I know you can do this in Vancouver, or you could have done this in Vancouver. It would have looked a bit weird. It's like, it's a very rainy day in California today. Very grey. That water looks particularly cold.
Mm.
But it works. I mean, I do think it's an effective episode. I think the problem with it is, and I think I alluded to it before, is that Bryan Cranston is kind of the whole core of it. It's not even really an X-Files episode. It's basically Patrick Crump, the episode. Or Patrick
Disagree entirely. It's
okay.
Very much an X-Files episode. It feeds into everything the X-Files is done for, with, shady government dealings, hurting people, and the cover-ups relating to them.
That is fair. And I do kind of like the denials when Scully goes to the military base. I'm not sure how she got as far as she did.
It's because they thought that she was CDC.
Yeah, and it's all very, very odd confusion on the part of the military staff. Oh, I already told us. Oh, yeah, just tell me again, because I've forgotten.
But it is a really good episode. It's a really well-structured episode. It's incredibly tense. And Mulder and Scully get almost equal screen time, both of them kind of doing stuff. It's not a Scully gets stuck in the autopsy room episode.
True. I did like the eerie atmosphere when they go to Crump's house, or his trailer. And it's like almost pitch black and all you can see is the suit lights lighting things up, which is really kind of eerie.
You get all the creepy things they find as well, like there's the dog going crazy that the second they calm the dog down, of course it stops running so it explodes, and all the dead birds on the ground and stuff like that. It's an eerie scene.
Although the implication from the dog is you don't actually need to drive west, you just need to run in one direction, run back the other way, then run back the first direction. Which will shortcut the episode, admittedly, but I'm amazed the dog actually survived as long as it did.
I'm going to assume it's because a dog can continuously run faster than a human can.
Yeah, I suppose so. And not tire us out in the same way.
Yeah. But of course, it could also be species difference.
It could, we don't know.
That it's affecting humans faster than animals or something.
Yeah, or if the pressure's not building up in the same way in the dog or something.
Mm. It's a terrible, horrible way to go as well.
It is, and I think that's an interesting point as well, is that Crump doesn't debate, doesn't even really pause when he says, you're not going to like it, but they're going to shove a needle in your ear, no anesthetic, probably going to deafen you, but you'll live. And he's like, I'm going to go with it.
They don't even say you're going to live, it's your only chance to live.
But still, there's no reticence there, it's the whole, I want to live.
Mm.
As kind of goaded by Mulder with the whole, you can't stick it to the government if you died.
I think that scene's hard as well because it immediately puts you in the doubt that he will live, because he asks then a couple of times for Mulder to move faster.
Yeah, it's getting worse.
Yeah, and it just then to lead into that bittersweet ending where Mulder pulls up and he's already dead in the car.
Yeah, I do think it's a good idea to leave it off screen to make you sort of. Although you noted there's a bit where Mulder suddenly breaks when he's going up over that hill. Whether that's intentional or not.
Well, you can see that Bryan Cranston sat differently in the car when Mulder brakes as well, because he's kind of. It could just be a cinematic group. As Mulder pulls up that last hill, Mulder brake lights go on and Bryan Cranston's kind of sat in the middle. But when he pulls in, he's slumped in the back seat. So you could say that maybe Bryan Cranston's alive, or maybe that was the point he died or something.
Yeah, and that's more than reacting to him dying. Or that's just purely the person driving the car up the hill said, I cannot do that before I slow down before I go up the hill. Difficult to say. This is one of those practical things you can't really sort of take into account. Do we have anything else for this episode?
It's actually a strange episode because there's not much to say on it, as so much of it is just how good Bryan Cranston is in that role.
Well, this is kind of what I meant about the whole...
And I can't really get across how good he is. He's been one of the best guest actors we've had so far. He's absolutely phenomenal.
Well, I would say, given his long filmography, it's like he's been in a lot of stuff, so he's got a lot of experience. But this is kind of what I meant by the whole... I feel it's more about Patrick Crump than the X-Files is, as you say, it's that back and forth between him and Mulder. Scully has her own separate scenes, but like the core of the episode is what's happening to this man and the attempt to fix it.
You know, originally, Bryan Cranston wasn't supposed to play Patrick Crump.
Okay.
He arrived at the interview and it had been a miscommunication as he'd thought he was reading for Crump, but they'd actually cast him in a lesser role. But when he arrived, he asked if he could audition for Crump anyway, and he so blew them away that they gave him the job. The place on the spot.
Oh, that's
it said even he'd arrived with the mustache because he'd grown out his mustache because he thought it would look good for the character and things. So it just shows how into it he was, and it really just showed in the performance.
Absolutely. He's a really good character and actor, and it's, I think the thing is, they bring the anti-Semitic thing in fairly quick, and that you still sympathise with him by the end, which is kind of a skillful thing to do, that to make an awful person relatable, ultimately.
I think it's because even though he's not the nicest of people in real life, he doesn't deserve what happens to him, and his wife also didn't deserve it.
No, given that neither of them barely understood what was going on. And because why? How could you understand what was going on?
It's their only feeling is that this must be something the government has done to them because it doesn't otherwise make sense to him.
Yeah.
Because he seems to strike you as one of these kind of American people who strongly believe that the government is out to get them anyway.
Which in the X-Files universe, it absolutely is.
Oh, he's absolutely hit the nail on the head with this one.
Yeah, although this is a separate government conspiracy to the other one that's out to get him, because of the bees, which we don't talk about anymore.
I think this is really strong. It's a shame the beginning came first, really, because this is a real high point.
As I said, as far as I was concerned, this is the start of the season, so yeah, off to a great start.
Yeah, it's an absolutely excellent Monster of the Week episode. It stands alone, even with, the bookend with Kirsch and all the rest of it. And it's just enthralling throughout. It's so tense, and it just keeps you watching because you want to know what's going to happen to Crump.
Yeah, and I don't think you don't get the impression at any point that he has to die. I think there's enough to make you think they can possibly cure him.
Yeah, which makes that sting at the end just really unpleasant.
Yeah. It's unlike a few other ones where they're clearly never going to survive or they have to survive. This is one where you couldn't call it and you want him to survive.
Yeah.
So I think that's a good sign.
But again, it's purely, I think, maybe another actor in this role and you wouldn't have empathised with Crump so wholly because he's not nice.
Next week, though, we are doing an X-Files episode which feels that it's on the one hand, it's kind of odd it's taken them 6 seasons to get here. On the other, it kind of, I think, being filmed in California helps you with this, is we're going to the Bermuda Triangle. I mean, it does seem like they should have got here a long time ago.
Yeah.
Like the comment about Mothman.
It's another fan favourite episode, Triangle, as well.
And then we follow it up with an interesting episode.
It's the first part of a two-parter, I think.
It is. And I could make you do Conspiracy Corner for it, but you'd probably murder me.
I think that'd be kind of fun. I'll see if I can, if there's enough there to do a Conspiracy Corner.
Do it for the second part, just because... I mean, it does reveal some things about the conspiracy.
I guess technically is a conspiracy episode. But
it is.
Yeah.
It's weirder than Emily. This is the weirdest one we're going to get.
It's Dreamland Part 1, anyway.
And Part 2 will have to be the week afterwards, just because of how we've split the season up. In the meantime, if you'd like to get hold of us, our email address is thingsargettingstrange42@gmail.com.
You can also find us on social media, and do please hook me up if you have anything you'd like me to promote at the start of the show. So like conventions, events, competitions, any fan stuff for the X-Files you've got on the go. We're on Twitter and Tumblr at GetStrange42. We're on Mastodon at GetStrange42 at universedon.com, or on Facebook, where you can find us by searching for Things Are Getting Strange, an X-Files Rewatch podcast. Additionally, and if you're not sick of my voice by now, I also stream on Twitch TV 3 times a week, where my username is AdverseCamber42. That's Mondays and Wednesdays at 8pm GMT, or Saturdays at 5pm GMT, where you can watch me as I play whatever I've currently got on the go on the PlayStation 5. It's currently Yakuza Like a Dragon.
We have a Patreon, patreon.com/thingsargettingstrange, where you can get exclusive access to our episodes 2 days early, and also to our Let's Play of the first X-Files FMV game, which is 2 parts currently. Part 3 will be coming up at the start of February.
Yay!
And we will shortly have that finished, and we'll move on to, I think, Resist or Serve will be next. Or do you want to do the book?
Up to you.
I suppose we could try a book. We haven't actually tried a book yet.
Yeah. You want me to go and dig out goblins?
Yeah, we'll have to dig out goblins, and we'll go through them in publication order. So goblins are first, and is it Perihelion?
The new book that's coming out.
Yeah.
Perihelion by Claudia Gray is coming out in July. If you want to get that pre-ordered, it is, at least in the UK, it's up to pre-order on Blackwell and Amazon at the moment.
That one will come way down the line because we've got to get through the Charles Grant, the Kevin J. Andersons, those 2 YA novels. And then we can get to Perihelion.
Yeah.
But yes, you can sign up for as little as $3 a month to get access to everything. And slightly more, and we'll read out your name at the end of an episode.
Woo.
Woo. Our theme music is envisioned by Kevin MacLeod. You can find that on incompetech.com, licensed under Creative Commons by Attribution 3.0. Thank you all for listening, and until next time, please remember,
the truth is out there.